Now, Editor-in-Chief of BNE IntelliNews, Ben Aris, joins me now live from Peterborough in the United Kingdom. Thank you very much, Ben, for joining us here on TRT World. So one confusion that I have here, was it an attack perpetrated by Russians working on behalf of Kiev, or was it Ukrainians who were able to cross the border into Russia?
No, it's quite clear that the members of the two groups, the Russian Volunteer Corps and the Freedom of Russia Legion, are Russians, and some of them have been in Ukraine fighting on the Ukrainian side. Both of them are dedicated to overthrowing Putin and freeing Russia from the regime that exists there now. And as Mark Gariotti was saying previously in your report, it's highly likely that they're also working in cooperation or with the backing of the SBU, the Ukrainian security services. The equipment that they were using, at least three armored vehicles, Humvees, US supplied, were destroyed that they were using, and those can only come from Kiev as part of the weapons that NATO have been supplying Ukraine. So as to the extent of the Ukrainian involvement, the security forces, I mean, that's not clear whether they've just been given some equipment. And they are, to some extent, autonomous Russian fighters, partisans, who are working within Russia and have been carrying out sabotage attacks across the country. The Kremlin state media has been suppressing these reports, but it's got to a stage now where they can't ignore it anymore. And there was a report in the Russian media that there's a number of sabotage attacks within Russia by these partisan groups has doubled in the last year, mainly targeting trains, logistics, blowing up train tracks.
Now, Ben, since there are allegations that there are links between Ukraine's intelligence and the group that perpetrated this attack, could this also mean the beginning of Ukraine's highly anticipated counteroffensive? Is this how it starts?
I don't think so. That part of the counteroffensive could include strikes against logistic targets, ammo dumps, oil refineries within Russia along that border. However, I think, as Dasha reported, that it's much more likely that this operation was carried out in response to the loss of Bakhmut, where there's been fighting going on for 8 months. The Russians last weekend claimed to have taken it over. The Institute of War this morning was reporting that for the first time since December, it can see no fighting going on with the city. And that was a huge propaganda and morale blow to Kiev to actually finally lose that fight, so it seems. And then what do we have? We have a few days later a spectacular raid across the border, the capture of a Russian town by Ukrainian fighters, the biggest incursion into Russia proper that there's been since the start of this war, although there's been sabotage attacks, arson attacks, bombs within Russian-controlled territory. But this was very specifically across the border into the European part of Russia, striking against a civilian target, this town that they took over in Belgorod. And that shook people up. I mean, there was images on social media of a mass exodus from the region, huge traffic jams, as Russians who lived there are sufficiently afraid that the war is going to spill across the border into Russia, that they're leaving the towns and villages in the immediate vicinity of the border.
All right, Ben Aris, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for talking to us here on TRT World.